All right, welcome back. So in this video, we're going to start to learn the basics of CSS. And so I have our trusty resource up that I left you off with in the previous page. And I clicked on Styling the Web, Introduction to CSS. So how does CSS work? Well, let's read this information real quick. So CSS, Cascading Style Sheets, allows you to create great-looking web pages. But how does it work under the hood? This article explains what CSS is, how the browser turns HTML into a document object model, DOM, how CSS is applied to parts of the DOM, some very basic syntax examples, and what code is used to actually include our CSS in our web page. Okay, so what is CSS? CSS is a language for specifying how documents are presented to users, how they are styled and laid out, etc. So, for example, this page was all built in CSS. If we were to go in and eliminate the CSS, all this would look like the page that you built in the previous section. That's what CSS is. CSS, how does it affect HTML? Web browsers apply CSS rules to a document to affect how they are displayed. A CSS rule is formed from a set of properties and a selector. So what are the properties? Properties which have values set to update how the HTML content is displayed. For example, I want my element's width to be 50% of its parent element and its background to be red. A selector which selects the elements you want to apply to the updated property value. 2, for example, I want to apply my CSS rule to all paragraphs in my HTML document. So a selector, there's 3 types of selectors. You have elements, which are HTML elements. You have IDs, and you have classes. So classes, you can give a class to, for example, the body, not the body, but the H1, we could give it a class of hello world, okay? And then we could give the paragraph tag the same one. We could give that hello world. And then if we went into the CSS and we typed in dot hello world and then gave it a color of blue, background yellow, and a border of 1 pixel solid black, then it would grab the H1 and the paragraph and give both of those that property, which is what you're calling for. Now, an ID is similar to an element. You can only put it on one element. So if you do H1, you could give the H1 an ID of hello world, and it would be H1 hashtag hello world, and then whatever the properties are. So that's the basics of CSS. Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to go into the code now, and I'm going to show you how to set all that up, and then we're going to come back here to finish up this video, and then we'll have more information on the next video. All right, so let's go into Sublime Text, and this was where we left off in the previous video, building out the HTML, and this is a perfect place to start coding CSS. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in the head tag below the CSS, and we're going to comment this out. This is internal CSS. Now, I highly am against this only because it's highly recommended and good practice to code your CSS on a separate file, because these pages tend to get long. I mean, you can see what we've been doing here. We have almost 100 lines of code. We have 98 lines of code because of all the spacing. So imagine trying to style this and you come back and you have 200 lines of HTML code. That's ridiculous. HTML should never be that long because it's structure. You're building just the basic structure, okay? So I'm going to give this the left bracket and type in style, give it the right bracket. Let's do left and the slash to close it. And then we're going to return 3 times, okay? And we're going to line 17. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in H1. I'm going to type in the left curly brace. By holding shift, you hit the left curly brace, it's going to grab both. Okay, now if we hit enter, Now we can start typing our properties. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in color. We're going to do red, color, colon, red, okay? And let's give it a background of purple. We'll just do some wild styling here, okay? And always, always, always close your property. Okay, right click, open in the browser, and now you can see our really ugly looking CSS. So we have red text and a purple background. Now, if we went back and we did H2, we're gonna return twice, type in H2, left curly brace, hold shift, left curly brace, hit enter, and now we're gonna do, let's do margin top 20 pixels, okay? Oh, that's not 20, there we go, 20 pixels, okay? Now let's go back, and I don't think that worked. Let me see here. Okay, let's give it a color of green. Let's do that first. Okay, let's save that. And if you hit Alt Tab, it'll go, if you hold Alt and hit Tab, you can tab between your windows. Okay, so there we go. Now, the text is green, and I'm going to make this 220. Let's right click and open that in the browser. Okay, the margin worked. So what we did was we did margin top from this element down to this element. This was the element that we were pushing. So we were pushing this away from the H1. So the H2 is 220 pixels from the top of the H1, okay? H3, let's do background, black, with 200 pixels, 300 pixels, let's do 300 pixels. Color, blue. Okay, Control S to save, right click, open in the browser, and there you go. This is a H3 tag, and we gave it a width of that. So you see what it can do. This is just very basic stuff, obviously, but I'm going to do one more thing. We're going to do margin left. Actually, let's do text align. Text align center. Hit enter, Control S to save, right click, open in the browser, and why didn't that work? Let me see here. Nope, it didn't. Oh, it did work. Because we gave it a background. So here's the thing. I thought it didn't work for some reason. When I opened it in the browser, I'm like, it's not working. But actually it is, because if you see here, we gave it a width of 300 pixels, and it put it in the middle of the width. So it's exactly in the middle of, from the left and the right. So that's correct. It's in the middle. So that worked. So now in the next video, we're going to continue learning more about CSS, and we're also going to learn more in here about different rules and things that they have in here. And I'm looking forward to showing you that. So I'll see you in the next video where we're going to learn more CSS.